They did not just want me to co-sign a loan. They wanted me to subsidize a lie wrapped in the word family. They sprang this trap during holiday dinner, betting that public pressure would force my compliance. They were wrong. I did not argue or make a scene. I simply smiled and nodded, preparing to introduce them to the one thing they had spent 30 years avoiding, which was his actual debt. My name is Marissa Caldwell. I am 39 years old, and for the last 8 years, I have worked as the operations manager for Northbridge Systems Group. My professional life is defined by the mitigation of risk. I spend my days looking at complex logistical chains, identifying the weak links, and calculating the exact probability of structural failure. I am paid a very comfortable salary to be the person who sees the disaster before it happens and puts the necessary safeguards in place to prevent it. I am good at my job because I do not rely on hope and I do not rely on potential. I rely on data. However, sitting at the mahogany dining table in my parents' house in a quiet suburb just outside of Chicago, I felt less like a high-level executive and more like a prey animal sensing a shift in the wind. It was our annual holiday lunch. The setting was aggressively domestic. My mother, Eleanor, had laid out the good linen tablecloth, the one with the hand-embroidered edges that she only brought out when she wanted to impress someone or when she wanted something. The air was thick with the scent of roasted turkey, sage stuffing, and the expensive vanilla candles she burned to mask the smell of the dog. My aunts and uncles were scattered around the table, their faces flushed with wine and the heat of the room, engaging in the kind of polite surface-level conversation that defines middle-class American families. They talked about kitchen renovations, golf handicaps, and the rising cost of college tuition, carefully avoiding anything that might actually matter. It was a perfect scene. It was warm. It was inviting. And to me, it felt entirely like a setup. I had been waiting for the other shoe to drop since I walked through the door and saw my brother, Dylan. Dylan was 36 years old. In our family lore, he was the golden boy. He had been the varsity quarterback, the prom king, the one with the smile that could charm a traffic cop out of a speeding ticket. But sitting across from me now, the charm looked worn, like a suit that had been dry cleaned too many times. He was wearing a crisp button-down shirt that I was fairly certain my mother had bought him, and he was laughing a little too loudly at Uncle Bob's jokes. His eyes were constantly darting around the room, assessing the mood, checking the exits. It was the look of a man who was juggling chainsaws and knew he was about to drop one. The ambush happened between the main course and dessert. It was a tactical masterstroke on my mother's part. Everyone was fed, lethargic, and trapped in their seats. My mother cleared her throat. It was a delicate sound, but it cut through the chatter like a knife against a glass. She smoothed her napkin on her lap and looked at my father, then at Dylan, and finally, her gaze settled on me with a weight that felt physical. "Marissa," she said, her voice dropping into that soft, concerned register she used when she was performing for an audience. "Your father and I were discussing something important this morning. We think it is finally time to really help Dylan get his feet back on the ground." I felt my spine stiffen against the hard wood of the dining chair. I carefully placed my fork down next to my knife. "I thought Dylan was doing well," I said, keeping my voice even. "Didn't he say he had a new venture starting soon?" "He does," my father chimed in. He was a large man who had spent his life avoiding conflict by deferring to my mother, and today was no exception. He offered me a tight, encouraging smile that didn't reach his eyes. "That is exactly it. He has a tremendous opportunity, a real career path, but you know how it is. Marissa, you cannot make money without the right tools." "I need a car." "Rissa," Dylan said. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. He flashed that famous smile, but I saw the tension in his jaw. "I have a lead on a sales position, high commission, lots of travel. I need something reliable to get to client meetings. I cannot show up in a junker. It sends the wrong message." "A car," I repeated. "Okay, that seems reasonable." "We found a perfect one," my mother said quickly. "It is safe, it is modern, and it has the image he needs to project. But there is a small hurdle." She paused, waiting for me to ask, I did not ask. I just waited. His credit score is still recovering, she continued, breezing past the awkward silence. From that little misunderstanding in Florida last year, you remember? I remembered. The misunderstanding involved a maxed-out credit card, a rented condo that had been trashed, and a frantic phone call to my father at 2 a.m. So the bank won't finance him, I said. They just need a little extra assurance, Dylan said. He waved his hand dismissively. It is just bureaucratic nonsense. I can make the monthly payments easily once the commissions start rolling in. I just need a cosigner to get the approval stamped. The word hung in the air over the mashed potatoes. Cosigner. I looked around the table. My aunts and uncles were watching us now. The conversation about golf had died away. They were witnessing a family moment, a test of loyalty. If I said no, I wasn't just refusing a financial transaction. I was rejecting my brother in front of an audience. I was breaking the holiday peace. What is the amount? I asked. It is just a signature, Marissa, my mother said, her voice taking on a slight edge. Don't be so technical. I cannot sign a loan without knowing the principal. Mom, how much is the car? Dylan looked down at his plate, suddenly very interested in a stray green bean. It is around $45,000. I felt a cold laugh bubble up in my chest, but I suppressed it. $45,000? Dylan, you are unemployed. You do not need a luxury vehicle. You can get a reliable sedan for $15,000. Image matters, Dylan snapped, his facade cracking for a split second before he recovered. You know how the corporate world works. Marissa, you cannot pull up to a client in a 10-year-old Honda and expect them to trust you with their money. I drive a 5-year-old Toyota, I said calmly, and I manage an operations budget of $12 million. Well, you are different, my mother interjected. You are established. Dylan is trying to break in. He needs the advantage. She leaned forward, her eyes pleading but hard. We would do it ourselves, you know that. But with your father retiring next year, our debt-to-income ratio is a little tight. We cannot take the hit on our credit right now. I looked at them, really looked at them. They were protecting their own financial future, their own credit scores, their own comfort. But they were perfectly willing to throw mine onto the pyre. They knew I had excellent credit. They knew I had savings. They saw my stability not as something I had earned through discipline and 60-hour work weeks, but as a family resource that they were entitled to harvest. You are asking me to take on the full legal responsibility for $45,000 of debt, I said. If Dylan misses a payment, the bank does not call him. They call me. If he defaults, they garnish my wages. That is what co-signing means. He is not going to default, my father said, sounding almost offended. He is your brother. He just needs a leg up. Why do you always have to assume the worst? Because I work in risk management, I said. And historically, Dylan is a high-risk investment. Oh, for heaven's sake, Marissa, my mother sighed, loud enough for Aunt Linda to hear at the other end of the table. Stop acting like a bank manager and act like a sister. You have that big house all to yourself. You have no husband, no kids. What are you saving it all for? Don't be selfish. The word selfish landed in the center of the table like a grenade. It was their favorite weapon. If I didn't give them what they wanted, I was selfish. If I had boundaries, I was cold. If I succeeded while Dylan failed, I was lucky. And he was a victim of circumstance. Uncle Bob, completely misreading the room, or perhaps just wanting to break the tension, raised his glass. She is right. Marissa, you are the moneybags of the operation. With your credit, the bank will probably give you the car for free. Help the kid out. It is Christmas, after all. A ripple of laughter went around the table. They were all smiling at me, encouraging me. To them, it was simple. Marissa has money. Dylan needs money. Marissa should give Dylan money. It was the natural order of things. I was the pack mule, and Dylan was the show pony. I looked at Dylan. He was looking at me with that same expression he used to wear when we were kids, and he had broken a lamp, waiting for me to take the blame. Come on, Rissa, just fix it. You always fix it. I felt a physical tightness in my chest, a familiar pressure that had been building for 20 years. I thought about the time I paid his rent 3 years ago because he forgot to mail the check. I thought about the bail money I put up when he got into a bar fight in college. I thought about the countless times I had dimmed my own light so he wouldn't feel blinded by it. I looked at my mother's expectant face. She wasn't asking. She was demanding. She was leveraging the public setting to force my hand. I took a deep breath. I picked up my wine glass and took a slow sip. The wine was warm and tasted like oak and manipulation. I set the glass down. I placed my hands on the table. "Okay," I said. The tension in the room snapped like a rubber band. My mother let out a breath she had been holding. Dylan slumped back in his chair, a grin spreading across his face. "I knew it," Dylan said, reaching for his water. "Thanks, Rissa. You won't regret it." "I will consider it," I corrected him, my voice soft but distinct. Dylan paused, the glass halfway to his mouth. "What?" "I said I will consider it," I repeated. "I am not signing anything today. Send me the loan documents. I want to see the terms, the interest rate, and the dealer's invoice. I also want to see the job offer letter you mentioned, just so I can calculate your debt-to-income ratio to ensure you can make the payments." "That is ridiculous," my mother snapped. "He needs to sign today. The deal won't last forever." "If the deal is real, it will be there on Monday," I said. I picked up my fork and knife again. "Send me the paperwork. Dylan, if everything checks out, I will sign." "You are making this so complicated," Dylan muttered, his face darkening. "Why can't you just trust me?" "I do trust you," I lied. "I just trust numbers more." I cut a piece of turkey and put it in my mouth, chewing slowly. The table returned to its chatter, though the air was still vibrating with unresolved tension. My mother was glaring at me, but she couldn't say anything more without making a scene. She thought she had won a partial victory. She thought, "I will consider it," was just my way of saving face before capitulating. She didn't know that inside my head, a switch had been flipped. I wasn't going to look at the paperwork to see if I could afford it. I was going to look at the paperwork because I knew, with absolute certainty, that they were lying to me. The panic in Dylan's eyes when I asked for the details told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a loan for a fresh start. This was a cover-up. I finished my meal in silence, listening to my family laugh and joke, oblivious to the fact that I was no longer the safety net. I was the auditor, and the audit was about to begin. The drive back to my condo usually takes 45 minutes, but the heavy holiday traffic turned it into a 90-minute crawl. The delay gave me too much time to think. The silence of the car was a stark contrast to the performative warmth of my parents' dining room. And in that silence, the anger I had suppressed began to cool into something harder and more useful. It transformed into scrutiny. I kept thinking about the way Dylan had looked at the table. Not the charm, but the micro-expressions. The twitch in his eyelid when I asked for the invoice. The way he had practically vibrated with anxiety until I gave that non-committal, "I will consider it." People do not act that way when they are excited about a new job. They act that way when they are running out of time. I started cataloging his history, not the family version where he was just unlucky, but the raw data version. 3 years ago, he needed $2,000 for an emergency dental procedure. I paid the dentist directly, but when I called to confirm the appointment, the receptionist seemed confused about the billing address. 2 years ago, he lost his apartment because of a roommate dispute. I paid the deposit on the new place. 6 months ago, his phone was disconnected because of a glitch. I paid the carrier. Every crisis had a narrative. Every narrative had a villain. A bad roommate, a clerical error, a jealous boss, and the hero was always my checkbook. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. It was a notification from the family group chat. My mother had sent a link. It was a listing for a car dealership, specifically highlighting their holiday closeout event. Below the link, she had typed a message that felt like it had been drafted by a hostage negotiator. "Please do not let him down. Marissa, he is so hopeful. This is the break he needs. The financing office closes at 6. I glanced at the dashboard clock. It was 3:30. They were trying to manufacture urgency. If I felt rushed, I would not read the fine print. That was Sales Tactics 101. Then, a separate notification popped up. It was Dylan. "Hey, Rissa." The text read, "Just left the lot. The finance guy says if we lock it in today, he can knock another 500 off the principal. Call me?" I put the car on speakerphone and dialed his number. He picked up on the first ring. "Rissa." "Hey," he said. His voice was breathless, pitched high with forced casualness. "I was just telling Mom. This car is perfect. It drives like a dream." "I am driving right now." "Dylan," I said, keeping my eyes on the brake lights in front of me. "I cannot look at anything yet." Right, totally," he said. "But look, I can just send over the e-signature link. It is super secure. You do not even have to come down here. Technology, right?" "I told you I need to see the paperwork first," I said. "Yeah, but the offer expires today," he pressed. In the background, behind his voice, I heard a distinct sound. It was the echoey, metallic announcement of a PA system, followed by the heavy slam of a car door and the murmur of multiple voices. It sounded like a showroom floor. "Are you at the dealership right now?" I asked. There was a hesitation, a beat of silence that lasted exactly 2 seconds too long. I just swung by to take another look, to make sure it was the one." "It sounded like you were sitting at a desk," I said. No, just walking around," he lied. "So, about that signature, can I send the link?" "Send me a picture of the loan agreement. Dylan, the physical paper. I want to see the numbers." "Okay, fine. You are such a buzzkill," he laughed, but the laugh was brittle. "Sending it now." He hung up. A minute later, my phone pinged. I waited until I was parked in my garage before I opened the image. It was a masterpiece of deliberate incompetence. The photo was blurry, taken at an angle, and the lighting was terrible. But what struck me immediately was the framing. He had cropped the top of the document, cutting off the lender's logo and the header. He had also used his thumb to obscure a section of text on the right side of the page. I pinched the screen to zoom in. The text was grainy, but I could make out the numbers. The principal amount listed was not $45,000. It was $52,490. I felt a spike of adrenaline. He had lied about the price by nearly $8,000. Why? Was he rolling negative equity from a trade-in into the new loan? Was he buying back-end add-ons like extended warranties and tire protection to pad the commission for the salesman? Or was he trying to cash out the difference? I moved the image around, scanning for more details. My eyes caught the address block for the borrower. It listed his current apartment, the one I had helped him secure. But then I looked at the address listed for previous residents' mailing. It was a post office box in a town called Cicero, about 40 minutes from where we lived. P.O. Box 492. The number triggered a memory, sharp and sudden. I had seen that sequence before. I closed the photo app and opened my banking app. Scrolling back through my transaction search history, I typed in Dylan. Nothing came up with that specific box number. I got out of the car, went up to my condo, and walked straight to my home office. Unlike my brother, I do not throw paperwork away. I have a filing cabinet organized by year and category. I pulled the folder labeled Family Gifts because that is how I categorized the money I bled for them. Gifts was a tax term, but sunk costs would have been more accurate. I flipped through the papers, receipts for rent, a copy of a check for a car repair 3 years ago, and then I found it. It was a bill from 18 months ago. Dylan had claimed he was in the hospital for dehydration and had lost the bill. He was terrified it would go to collections and ruin his credit score. The irony was not lost on me now. I had paid it over the phone, but I had written down the details on a notepad which I had stapled to the bank statement. Remit to P.O. Box 492. Cicero. I stared at the paper. Why would a hospital bill go to the same P.O. box listed on a car loan application? I turned to my computer and typed the address into a search engine. The result was not a hospital. It was not a utility company. It was a third-party billing service often used by high-risk lenders and collection agencies to process payments anonymously. I sat back in my chair. The hospital bill I paid 18 months ago was not for medical care. I had paid off a loan shark, or at least a predatory lender. And now, that same address was appearing on his car loan paperwork. This was not just about a car. I went back to the blurry photo on my phone. I looked at the section his thumb was covering. It was the Truth in Lending disclosure box, the federal requirement that shows the annual percentage rate. He was hiding the interest rate. I did some quick mental math. If the principal was $52,000, and he was hiding the rate, and he needed a cosigner, he was likely looking at an interest rate north of 18%, maybe 20%. The monthly payment on a loan like that, over 72 months, would be well over $1,000. I recalled the conversation at lunch. "I have a lead on a sales position," he had said. A lead, not an offer, not a contract. He currently had zero income. I picked up my phone and called a contact of mine, a woman named Sarah who worked as a loan officer at a major commercial bank. It was Saturday, but she answered. "Marissa, everything okay?" "Hypothetical question," I said, skipping the pleasantries. "If a borrower has a cosigner with an 800-plus credit score, but the borrower himself has a history of delinquency and no proof of income, does the bank look at the cosigner's income to approve the loan?" "Absolutely," Sarah said. "In that scenario, the bank is not really lending to the borrower. We are lending to the cosigner. The borrower is just the person driving the car. The cosigner is the one we are banking on. And if the borrower defaults? We come after the cosigner for the full amount immediately. And since the cosigner is usually the one with the assets, we do not waste time chasing the deadbeat. We go straight for the person who can pay." She paused. "Marissa, please tell me you are not co-signing for your brother." "I am gathering data," I said. "Do not do it," she said, her voice dropping. "I see this every day. Parents co-signing for kids, sisters for brothers. It is never just a signature. It is a transfer of liability. If he was stable, the bank would give him the loan. The fact that they require you means their algorithms predict he will fail. You are betting against the house, and the house has better math than you do." I hung up and looked at the pile of receipts on my desk. Sarah was right. The bank's algorithms had flagged him. My parents knew he could not get the loan alone. Dylan knew it. The only person they were trying to fool was me. But there was something else. The discrepancy in the loan amount. The $52,000 versus $45,000, and that PO box. If he was just buying a car, why did the paperwork link back to a collection service address? I looked closer at the blurry photo again, specifically at the line items under the total. It was hard to read, but one line item didn't look like tax or title. It looked like refee or payoff. My stomach turned over. He wasn't just buying a car. He was rolling an existing debt into the car loan. He was trying to bury a previous financial disaster inside a new one, and he wanted me to sign my name to the shovel. My mother's text flashed in my mind. "Don't be selfish." I realized then that my anger was useless. My indignation was useless. If I went back to them and screamed that they were liars, they would gaslight me. They would call me paranoid. They would say I was misinterpreting the blurry photo. They would cry about family loyalty until I looked like the villain. I could not fight them with feelings. I needed high-definition proof. I opened my laptop and composed a text to Dylan. I kept my tone breezy, helpful, the dutiful sister. "Dylan, the photo is too blurry for me to read the terms. I want to help, but I need to see the full, unredacted PDF of the loan agreement and the dealer invoice. Also, send me the contact info for the finance manager you are working with. I want to verify the insurance requirements." I watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, and appear again. He was panicking. He was trying to figure out if this was a trap. Finally, a reply. "The guy is busy right now. Can you just sign the digital form if I send the link? The terms are standard. Trust me." "No," I typed back. "I do not sign what I cannot read. Send the documents, or the answer is no." I set the phone down. The sun was setting, casting long, cold shadows across my office. I was done being the safety net. If they wanted to play games with finance, they were about to learn that they were playing with a professional. I wasn't going to save Dylan this time. I was going to audit him. The notification on my phone screen said, "Mom calling," but I knew it was not just her. It was Sunday morning, the time my parents usually spent drinking coffee and strategizing their week. If they were calling me now, it meant they had put me on the agenda. I let it ring 3 times before answering. I needed to be fully awake, fully armored. I sat up in bed, reached for my glasses, and swiped the green icon. "Hello? Marissa, we are all here," my mother's voice chirped, skipping the pleasantries. "I have your father and Dylan on speaker. We were just saying how silly this back and forth has become." "Good morning to you too," I said, keeping my voice flat. "I was actually about to call you. We need to meet." "Meet?" My mother let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. "Marissa, honestly, it is a signature. It is not a peace treaty. Why do you have to make everything into a production? Just click the link Dylan sent you and be done with it." "It is not just a signature," I said. "It is a legal liability for $52,000. I noticed the amount on the blurry photo Dylan sent was significantly higher than the $45,000 we discussed at lunch. There was a pause on the other end, a shuffled sound, like a hand being placed over a microphone, and then a muffled whisper. "Fees," Dylan's voice cut in. He sounded agitated, the way he always did when he was forced to explain himself. "It is just taxes, licensing, dealer prep, extended warranty. You know how they gouge you." $7,000 in dealer prep? I asked. "That seems high." "Dylan." "Listen, Rissa." My father's voice joined the fray. It was soothing, reasonable. The voice of a man who just wanted everyone to stop yelling so he could go back to his newspaper. "The boy needs the car. The specific numbers are just details. Why are you splitting hairs? You know we are good for it. He is good for it." "If he is good for it, he does not need me," I pointed out. "But that is not the point. I am not signing anything based on a text message. I want us to sit down, face to face, and look at the actual paperwork, all of it." "We can come to your place," Dylan offered quickly, too quickly. He wanted to get into my space, make me play hostess, use the home field advantage of guilt in my own living room. "No," I said. "We can meet tomorrow evening. But before that, I had a question about the loan structure. Dylan, you mentioned in your text that the finance guy could knock 500 off if we acted fast. That usually implies a change in the loan terms." "Yeah, whatever," Dylan said. "Look, I just want to get this done. I figured it would be easier if I just consolidated everything into one monthly payment, for convenience." The word hung in the air, static and electric, consolidated. I sat very still. "Consolidated what, exactly?" The costs," Dylan stammered. He had realized his mistake the second it left his mouth. "The car, the insurance, the registration. Just wrap it all up." "You cannot wrap insurance into a car loan." "Dylan," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "Lenders do not do that. When you say consolidate, that is a banking term usually reserved for refinancing existing debt. Are you rolling another loan into this car note?" "Oh my God." "Here we go," Dylan groaned. "She is doing the interrogation thing again. Mom, tell her to stop acting like a police officer. I am buying a Ford, not laundering money." "Marissa," my mother snapped, her patience evaporating. "Stop looking for problems where there are none. Your brother is trying to be responsible. He is trying to simplify his finances so he can manage them better. Why do you have to twist everything into a conspiracy?" "I am not twisting anything," I said. "I am asking a direct question. Is there any other debt being added to this principal amount? Because if I sign, I become responsible for that debt too." "You are responsible for family," my mother shouted. The volume on the speakerphone distorted her voice. "That is what you are responsible for. My God, Marissa, do you hear yourself? You sound like a stranger. You sound like one of those cold corporate robots you work with." I sound like someone who reads contracts, I said. You are jealous, my mother said. The accusation came out of nowhere. Low and venomous. It was a tactical shift. She realized I was winning on logic, so she decided to burn the board with emotion. Excuse me? I asked. You are jealous, she repeated, her voice dripping with a twisted sort of pity. You have always been jealous of him, because we have to help him, because we worry about him. You think because you have money and a job that you are better, but deep down, you hate that we pay more attention to him. You are holding this signature hostage because it is the only time you feel powerful over him. Silence stretched across the line. It was a heavy, suffocating silence. In the past, that accusation would have made me cry. It would have made me defend myself. I would have stuttered out listing all the things I did for them, begging them to see me, begging them to value me. I would have signed the paper just to prove I wasn't jealous, just to prove I was a good sister. But I wasn't that person anymore. The PEO, Box and Cicero had killed that version of me. I looked at the phone in my hand. They were projecting. They were terrified. They weren't angry because I was jealous. They were angry because I was asking the one question that could bring their house of cards down. They knew about the other debt. They had to know. That was why they were so desperate to bury it under my credit score. I let the silence drag on for 10 seconds, 15 seconds. I let them sit in the awkwardness of what she had just said. Are you done? I asked finally. My voice was incredibly calm, almost bored. Marissa, I did not mean, my father started, trying to walk it back. No, let Mom finish, I said. If she thinks I'm doing this out of jealousy, that is fine. You can think whatever you want, but my signature costs money, and right now, the price is full disclosure. We are not showing you his personal bank statements, my mother hissed. That is an invasion of privacy. Then find another co-signer, I said. Go ask Uncle Bob. He seemed very supportive at lunch. Bob does not have the credit rating, my father muttered. Exactly, I said. I do, and I protect my rating by knowing exactly what I'm signing. So here's the deal. I am willing to move forward. You are? Dylan asked, hope leaking into his voice. I will sign the loan. I lied. But only after I have reviewed a full credit report and a breakdown of every cent included in that $52,000. I want to see where the money is going. If it is just dealer prep like you said, you have nothing to worry about. The bank does not even ask for that much detail, Dylan argued. They just run the score. But I am asking, I said. The bank has insurance against default. I have nothing but your word, and frankly, considering you just tried to lie to me about consolidating debt, your word is currently overdrawn. I did not lie, Dylan shouted. Tomorrow, I said, cutting him off. 6 o'clock, at the Daily Grind on 4th Street. Why there? My mother asked suspiciously. Why can't you come home for dinner? I can make that pot roast you like. Because I do not want pot roast, I said. I want coffee, and I want a public place where we can keep our voices down. This is ridiculous, my mother said. Treating your family like a business transaction. If you want my money, it is a business transaction, I said. Bring the paperwork, bring the invoice, and Dylan, bring your last 3 bank statements. No way, Dylan said. That is none of your business. Then enjoy taking the bus to your new job, I said. See you tomorrow. I hung up the phone before they could respond. My hand was shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally drawing a line in the sand. My mother's words still echoed in my ears. You are jealous. It was designed to hurt, and it did, but not in the way she intended. It hurt because it confirmed that she saw my stability as a defect and his chaos as a virtue. I walked over to my desk and opened my laptop. I had about 30 hours before the meeting. I needed to prepare. If they were going to bring lies to the coffee shop, I needed to bring the truth. I logged into a public records database. I had a name. I had a PEO box. And thanks to Dylan's slip-up, I had a confirmation that he was trying to consolidate. Now I just needed to find the paper trail that linked them all together. They thought the meeting at the coffee shop was going to be an intervention for me, a place where they could bully me into submission with public pressure and guilt. They did not realize that I had chosen that location for their protection, not mine. When I laid out the facts, there was going to be screaming, and I wanted witnesses. The Sunday morning sun was deceptively bright, casting a cheerful glow over my living room that felt entirely at odds with the forensic investigation I was conducting on my dining table. I had spent the night sleeping in shifts, waking up every few hours with a new question, a new suspicion, and a new angle to research. I started by calling Kevin. Kevin was a former colleague from Northbridge who had pivoted into personal wealth management. He was the kind of guy who found tax loopholes for sport. I sent him the screenshot of the blurry loan document Dylan had texted me, along with the interest rate calculation I had done on the back of a napkin. "Kevin," I said when he picked up, skipping the small talk, "if you saw an auto loan for a $36,000 vehicle listed with a principal of $52,000, what is your first thought?" "Negative equity," Kevin answered immediately. "The buyer is trading in a car they still owe money on, and the dealer is rolling that old debt into the new loan. It is the classic underwater trap. They are paying interest on a car they do not own anymore." "And if the buyer does not have a trade-in?" I asked. There was a long silence on the line. "If there is no trade-in," Kevin said slowly, "then that is not just a car loan. Marissa, that is a structured settlement disguised as a sale. Some predatory lenders will pack the loan with debt consolidation riders if the credit score is bad enough. They pay off high-interest credit cards or personal loans, tack it onto the car note, and secure the whole thing against the vehicle and a cosigner. It is legal, but it is ugly. They are basically refinancing a chaotic life into a single monthly payment that is doomed to fail." "Structured settlement," I repeated. The term felt cold and heavy. "Why do you ask?" Kevin said. "Please tell me you are not buying a timeshare." "No," I said. "Just helping a friend audit a bad deal." I hung up and looked at the whiteboard I had set up. Kevin's theory matched the consolidate slip-up Dylan had made on the phone. Dylan wasn't just buying a car. He was trying to find a container for his financial mess, and he wanted me to be the lid that kept it from exploding. I needed more than theories. I needed to establish a pattern of behavior that I could present to my parents. They lived in a world of emotions where Dylan was just unlucky. I needed to drag them into the world of data where Dylan was a liability. I went to the closet in my guest room. Last month, Dylan had stayed with me for 3 days while his apartment was being fumigated. Another story I had never verified. He had left a box of stuff in the closet, promising to pick it up later. He never did. I pulled the box out. It was mostly old video games and hoodies, but at the bottom, there was a stack of unopened mail. He had been using my address for certain accounts, likely to keep his creditors from finding his actual apartment or to hide the volume of overdue notices from his roommates. I sat on the floor and began to sort them. It was a graveyard of good intentions. There were 3 separate letters from credit card companies. They were not bills. They were adverse action notices, the formal letters banks send when they deny your application for credit. The dates were recent, 1 from October, 2 from November. He had been frantically applying for credit cards, likely trying to balance transfer his way out of a hole, and he had been rejected every single time. The reason codes listed were damning: high debt-to-income ratio, delinquency on existing accounts, insufficient credit history. Then I found something else, a letter from a car insurance company I didn't recognize. It was a notice of cancellation for non-payment. It was dated 4 months ago. This triggered a memory. Dylan had told us in August that he was switching insurance providers because he found a better rate. He hadn't found a better rate. He had been dropped. I went back to my laptop and logged into my own auto insurance portal. Years ago. I had put Dylan on my policy as an occasional driver when he was in college, and though I had removed him as a driver, his profile was still linked in the household history section. I clicked through the history logs. There was a note from an underwriter from 2 years ago. Driver Dylan Caldwell flagged for multiple unreported incidents. Policy risk increased. He had been crashing, not big crashes, but fender benders, scrapes. things he likely paid cash to fix to avoid police reports. But the insurance databases knew. They always knew. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. I was being asked to co-sign for a man who could not get a credit card, could not keep insurance, and lied about why he was switching providers. But the smoking gun was yet to come. I opened the county clerk's public records database. It is amazing what you can find when you stop being a sister and start being an investigator. I searched for Dylan Caldwell in the civil court records. I expected maybe a speeding ticket or a parking violation. What I found was a judgment. Case number CV202489. Plaintiff, Apex Property Management. Defendant, Dylan Caldwell. Status, judgment entered. Amount, $1,840. It was from a year ago. A former landlord had sued him for unpaid rent or damages, and Dylan hadn't even shown up to defend himself. The court had issued a default judgment. He had never mentioned this, not once. He had told us he moved out of that place because the neighbors were noisy. I printed the page. The printer hummed, spitting out the sheet of paper that proved my brother was not just bad with money, he was legally delinquent. My phone pinged. It was an email from Dylan. Subject line, "Here is the paper you wanted." I opened it, expecting the PDF from the dealership. Instead, attached was a Microsoft Word document. I opened the file. It was a single page, typed in a default font, with no letterhead, no legal terminology, and several formatting errors. It read, I, Dylan Caldwell, promise to pay the full monthly amount for the Ford Explorer every month. Marissa Caldwell is signing only for formality and will not be asked to pay. If I miss a payment, I will sell the car immediately to cover the cost. Signed, Dylan Caldwell. I stared at the screen. I actually laughed out loud. It was a dark, incredulous sound. He thought this was what I wanted. He thought a pinky swear typed on a laptop was the same thing as a binding financial contract. He thought he could supersede federal lending laws and bank regulations with a paragraph he wrote himself. It was insulting. It showed exactly how little he respected my intelligence. He truly believed that I was just being a stickler for rules, a fussy older sister who just needed a note to feel better. He didn't understand that once my name was on that bank loan, his little Word document would be useless in a court of law. The bank would not care about his promise. The bank would care about my assets. I realized then that this wasn't just manipulation, it was delusion. My parents and Dylan had created a shared reality where intentions mattered more than actions. They believed that because Dylan meant well, the consequences shouldn't apply to him. I started a spreadsheet. I labeled the columns: creditor, estimated amount, status, source of evidence. Row 1, Ford dealership, principal, amount, $52,000, status, pending, source, loan app. Row 2, Apex Property Management, amount, $1,800, status, judgment, source, public records. Row 3, unknown lender, Cicero, amount, unknown, status, active collection, source, bank statement mailing address. Row 4, credit cards, amount, unknown, high, status, refused refinancing, source, rejection letters. I looked at the total. Even without the specific amounts for the credit cards and the Cicero loan, the picture was catastrophic. If I signed that loan, I wasn't helping him buy a car. I was essentially handing him a clean slate by absorbing his toxicity onto my own credit report. I would become the tote bag for his financial waste. And the moment he missed a payment, which, looking at the insurance cancellations and the lawsuit, was a statistical certainty, my credit score would tank. My ability to refinance my own mortgage would vanish. My security clearance at work could even be jeopardized by the sudden appearance of massive delinquent debt. I wasn't just risking $50,000. I was risking my entire life infrastructure. I printed the spreadsheet. I printed the judgment. I printed the insurance cancellation notice. I printed his ridiculous promissory note. I organized them into a sleek black presentation folder. I didn't want loose papers. I wanted this to look like what it was, an audit. I checked the time. It was late afternoon. My mother texted me. "We are so glad you are being reasonable. Marissa, Dad is really relieved. See you tomorrow." She thought I was folding. She thought I had spent the day cooling off, getting ready to play my role as the supportive daughter. I looked at the black folder on my desk. It looked like a tombstone. I wasn't going to argue with them at the coffee shop. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to tell them how much it hurt that they tried to trick me. I was simply going to open the folder. If they wanted my signature, they were going to have to look at the reality they had spent a lifetime ignoring. They were going to have to look at the numbers. If they wanted my signature, they would have to look straight at the numbers they were dodging. My phone buzzed again. It was Kevin, the wealth manager I had spoken to earlier. He had been digging into the description I gave him of the fees Dylan had casually mentioned during our last conversation, the ones he claimed were for networking memberships and exclusive job listing services. "Marissa, are you sitting down?" Kevin asked. His voice had lost its earlier professional detachment. It was tight now, urgent. "I am at my desk," I said, putting him on speaker so I could keep typing. "What did you find?" "You mentioned Dylan had a recurring automatic payment to a company called Tanner and Associates that he claimed was a career coaching firm," Kevin said. "I ran the name through a few industry databases. They are not career coaches. Marissa, they are a third-party collections agency specializing in unsecured personal debt recovery. Specifically, they buy bad debt from payday lenders and credit card companies for pennies on the dollar, and then aggressively pursue the debtor." My fingers stopped moving over the keyboard. "Are you sure?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "I am positive," Kevin said. "And if he is making monthly payments to them, it means he is already in a payment plan to avoid further legal action. But here's the kicker. Based on the amount you saw, $300 a month, he is likely servicing a debt in the range of $15,000 to $20,000, and that is just one creditor." "He told us it was a subscription to a headhunter service," I whispered. "He said it was an investment in his future." "It is an investment in keeping the wolves away," Kevin corrected. "Marissa, if he has payment plans with collectors, his credit score is not just recovering like your mother said, it is incinerated. There is no way a legitimate bank approves him for a $52,000 car loan unless the cosigner is the only thing they are looking at." I finished the sentence for him. "Exactly, you are not a cosigner. You are the primary target." I thanked Kevin and hung up. The room felt suddenly smaller. The air felt thinner. I sat there, staring at the black folder on my desk. The pieces were fitting together into a picture that was uglier than I had imagined. Dylan wasn't just broke. He was actively insolvent, and he was lying to me about the nature of the money leaving his bank account every month. I remembered another name he had dropped recently, Bridgepath. He had mentioned it when I asked him how he paid for his new suit. "Oh, Bridgepath fronted it for me. It is like a corporate expense account for candidates," he had said. I opened a new tab on my browser and typed in Bridgepath. The first result was not a corporate expense management firm. It was a high-interest consumer lending platform, the kind that offers emergency cash in 24 hours, with interest rates that border on usury. I felt a wave of nausea. He wasn't getting job perks. He was taking out predatory loans to buy suits to look like he had a job, so he could trick us into giving him more money. It was a Ponzi scheme, and the only investor was his family. I picked up my phone and dialed Dylan. I didn't plan what I was going to say. The anger was rising too fast to be scripted. "Hey, Rissa," he answered after 2 rings. He sounded wary. "Did you get the file?" "I know what Tanner and Associates is," I said. The silence on the other end was absolute. It was the silence of a vacuum. "I know it is not a career coach, Dylan," I continued, my voice shaking slightly. "And I know Bridgepath isn't an expense account. You are taking out payday loans to pay off collection agencies. Is that what this car loan is for? Are you cashing out the difference to pay off Bridgepath?" "You are crazy," he whispered. His voice was trembling. "You do not know what you are talking about." "Tell me the truth," I demanded. "How much do you actually owe, right now, total? I am hanging up, he said. If you hang up, I am not coming to the meeting tomorrow, I said, and I am blocking your number. You are destroying this family, he screamed. It wasn't a denial, it was a deflection. You are obsessed with ruining me. Why can't you just let me have one thing? Why do you have to dig up dirt? Because you are asking me to buy the dirt, I shouted back. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. You are destroying this family. It was the ultimate weapon. It was the phrase designed to bypass logic and hit straight at the guilt center of the brain. 30 seconds later, a text message popped up from him. You don't understand. If I don't get this money, everything falls apart. Just sign the paper, please. Before I could reply, my phone rang again. It was my mother. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask how I was. Marissa, what did you say to your brother? Her voice was ice cold. It wasn't the voice of a mother mediating a sibling squabble. It was the voice of a general whose battle plan had been compromised. I asked him about his debt collectors, I said. The ones he lied about. Stop it, she snapped. Just stop it. You are making this into something it is not. He is drowning in debt, Mom. He is borrowing from loan sharks. He made some mistakes, she yelled. And we are fixing it. That is what families do. We fix things. We do not investigate each other. We cannot fix it with a car loan, I argued. That is just adding more debt. It buys him time, she said. The desperation in her voice cracked through the anger. It buys him time to get the job. Once he gets the commissions, he can pay everyone back. But he needs the car to get the job. Do you not see? It is all connected. If you stop this, you break the chain. Who is everyone? Mom? I asked. Who does he need to pay back? We promised them, she said. The words slipped out before she could catch them. I froze. You promised who? The people, she stammered. The creditors. We told them Dylan was getting a structured loan. We told them he would have a lump sum soon to settle the accounts. If this loan does not go through... She trailed off, but the implication hung in the air like smoke. We promised them. My parents weren't just bystanders. They were active participants. They had communicated with his creditors. They had used my name, or at least the promise of financing, to hold off the wolves. They had likely told these agencies, hold off on the lawsuit. Hold off on the garnishment. Our daughter is going to co-sign a large loan, and we will pay you out of that. They had sold my signature before I had even given it. You used me as collateral, I said. It wasn't a question. We did what we had to do to protect your brother, she said, regaining her composure. And tomorrow, you will do what you have to do. Do not make a scene at the bank. Marissa, do not embarrass us. The meeting is at the coffee shop, I reminded her. No, she said. We changed it. We are meeting at the bank branch on Main Street. 10 o'clock. It is more professional. I did not agree to that. Mr. Henderson is expecting us, she said. He is a family friend. He knows the situation. He has the paperwork ready. Mr. Henderson? I repeated. The name sounded familiar. He was a golfing buddy of my father's, a man who had probably known Dylan since he was in diapers. Be there, Marissa, she said. If you care about us at all, be there. She hung up. I sat in the silence of my office. The pieces were locking into place. This wasn't a standard bank transaction. This was a family friend deal, a backroom favor. Mr. Henderson was likely bending the rules, overlooking the debt-to-income ratios because he trusted my father, or because my father had called in a lifetime of favors. The car loan was the lid. Beneath it, the pot was boiling over with collection agencies, payday lenders, and broken promises. My parents were frantically trying to hold the lid down, and they needed my weight to keep it sealed. If I didn't sign, the pot would explode. The creditors would resume their attacks. The lawsuits would proceed. Dylan would be exposed. But if I did sign, I would be the one holding the scalding metal when it finally burst. I needed to regain control. They had moved the location to the bank to ambush me. to surround me with professionalism and the authority of a bank manager so I would feel too intimidated to ask questions. They thought Mr. Henderson's presence would silence me. They were wrong. I opened my laptop and drafted a new document. It wasn't a spreadsheet this time. It was a legal authorization form. I, Dylan Caldwell, hereby authorize First National Bank and its representatives to fully disclose all current debt obligations, credit inquiries, and outstanding judgments found during the underwriting process to Marissa Caldwell. I acknowledge that Marissa Caldwell acts solely as a prospective guarantor and has the right to review all financial data prior to signing. I sent it to Dylan with a subject line, "Condition for tomorrow." I typed a message in the body. I will be at the bank at 10 o'clock, but I will not step into Mr. Henderson's office until you sign this document and email it back to me. If you want me to co-sign, you have to waive your privacy rights. I want to hear the bank manager list every single debt you have. If you have nothing to hide, this is easy. Sign it. I expected a fight. I expected him to call me names again. I expected my mother to call back and scream about boundaries. But 3 minutes later, my inbox pinged. It was the document. Signed. He had signed it electronically, the timestamp showing he hadn't even read it. He had just clicked accept. That terrified me more than the screaming. It meant he was so desperate, so cornered, that he would sign away his privacy just to get his hands on that check. He was like a drowning man thrashing in the water. He would grab onto a blade if he thought it would keep him afloat. I looked at his signature on the screen. It was shaky. Then, another email arrived. It was an automated appointment confirmation from the bank. Appointment confirmed. Loan closing. Attendees: Dylan Caldwell, Eleanor Caldwell, Robert Caldwell, Marissa Caldwell, Officer James Henderson. And there, in the notes section of the calendar invite, was a phrase that made my blood run cold. Note: pre-approval override authorized per discussion with R. Caldwell. Expedited closing requested. Pre-approval override. My father had convinced his friend to override the system's rejection. They were bypassing the safety checks. They were manually forcing a toxic loan through the pipes, relying on my credit score to act as the filter. I closed my laptop. I didn't feel like a sister anymore. I didn't even feel like a daughter. I felt like the only person in the room who knew there was a gas leak, while everyone else was busy lighting candles. I printed the authorization form. I printed the email with the override note. I wasn't going to the bank to sign a loan. I was going to the bank to witness a collision, and I had to make sure I wasn't the one in the wreckage. I arrived at the bank at 9:45, exactly 15 minutes before our scheduled appointment. I have learned over the years that in any negotiation, the person who controls the environment controls the outcome. I wanted to be seated, settled, and calm before the chaos arrived. The branch was quiet, smelling of floor wax and stale coffee. I took a seat in the waiting area, placing my black folder on my lap. Inside were the receipts of my past compliance, the rent checks, the bail money, the loans that turned into gifts. I ran my fingers over the cool plastic cover. This folder was not just paperwork, it was a shield. It was the physical reminder that my memory was not faulty, that my selfishness was actually self-preservation. At 10:10, 10 minutes late, the heavy glass doors swung open. My mother led the charge. She was wearing her Sunday best, a bright floral blouse that seemed aggressively cheerful for a loan closing. She walked with a bustling, performative energy, waving at a teller she barely knew. "We are here," she announced, her voice carrying across the silent lobby. "Sorry we are a little late. Traffic was terrible." Behind her trailed my father and Dylan. My father looked gray. He was wearing a suit that was slightly too large for him, and he kept adjusting his tie as if it were choking him. Dylan looked worse. He was wearing the new suit he had bought with the predatory loan, but he looked like he hadn't slept in 48 hours. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he was sweating despite the aggressive air conditioning. They spotted me. My mother's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she plastered it back on. "Marissa, you are early," she said, leaning in to kiss my cheek, I smelled her perfume, heavy and floral, masking the scent of anxiety. I told your father you would be here. He was worried you might forget. I never forget appointments, I said, standing up. Mr. Henderson is ready for us. We were ushered into a glass-walled office at the back of the branch. James Henderson was a man in his late 50s with a comb-over and a handshake that was slightly too damp. He had played golf with my father for 20 years. He knew us as the nice family from the suburbs. He did not know he was about to preside over a demolition. Bob, Eleanor, good to see you, Henderson said, gesturing to the chairs. He looked at me and nodded. And this must be Marissa, the savior of the day, right? He laughed, a nervous, chuckling sound. Nobody else laughed. Let us get started, I said, taking the seat closest to the desk. I have a tight schedule today. Henderson cleared his throat and opened a thick file on his desk. Right. Well, everything is pretty much standard. We have the application here for the 2024 Ford Explorer. As discussed with your father, we have structured this as a secured auto loan with a secondary refinance rider. I held up a hand. Pause, I said. What is the total loan amount listed on that document? Mr. Henderson? Henderson looked at the paper, then at my father, then back at me. The total financing package is $58,450. The room went silent. 58,000, I repeated slowly. Dylan told me 45, then he texted me 52. Now it is 58. That is a significant drift. Well, there are origination fees, Henderson said, shifting in his chair. And we rolled in the negative equity from his previous trade-in, plus the consolidation of 2 personal lines of credit to clean up his debt-to-income ratio. That was the only way to get the approval system to accept the risk profile. So you are asking me to co-sign for a car, an old car debt, and 2 personal loans, I said. It is all 1 monthly payment, my mother interjected quickly. She was leaning forward, her hands clasped on the desk as if she were praying. It simplifies everything, Marissa. Just 1 bill. It is so much easier for Dylan to manage. I ignored her and kept my eyes on the banker. Mr. Henderson, before we proceed, I need to see the underwriting data. I want to know exactly which personal lines of credit are being paid off. Henderson hesitated. Well, privacy laws are quite strict. Marissa, usually, we do not share the borrower's specific credit history with the cosigner. You are just guaranteeing the payment, not auditing the borrower. Actually, I said, reaching into my bag, I pulled out the authorization form Dylan had signed the night before. I slid it across the desk. Dylan has already waived his privacy rights. He authorized full disclosure as a condition of my attendance today. Henderson picked up the paper. He adjusted his glasses. He looked at Dylan. Is this your signature, son? Dylan stared at the floor. He looked like a child who had been called to the principal's office. Yeah, he mumbled. Just show her. Whatever. Henderson sighed. He looked unhappy. He typed something into his computer and turned the monitor slightly so he could read from it. All right, Henderson said. The consolidation covers a balance of $4,000 on a Visa card and a balance of $12,000 to a creditor listed as Tanner and Associates. Tanner and Associates, I said. The collection agency. Technically, they are a distressed debt purchaser, Henderson said, using the polite banking term for a shark. The account is currently listed as 90 days past due. It is in pre-legal status. Pre-legal means they are about to sue him, I translated. What else is on the report? Mr. Henderson, what are the active delinquencies? There is the judgment from Apex Property, Henderson read, his voice getting quieter. 1,800, and there appears to be a series of inquiries from short-term lenders, BridgePath, Quick Cash, Speedy Loan, 6 inquiries in the last month. I turned to look at my brother. He was gripping the armrests of his chair so hard, his knuckles were white. You are not buying a car, I said to him. My voice was not loud. It was deadly calm. You are trying to get me to pay off a collection agency and a landlord you stiffed, and you are wrapping it in sheet metal so it looks respectable." "It is a fresh start," my mother burst out. She slammed her hand on the desk, startling Henderson. "He needs to pay those people off to get his score up. If he gets the car, he gets the job. If he gets the job, he pays the loan. It is a bridge. Marissa, why do you have to burn the bridge?" "Because it is not a bridge." "Mom," I said, "it is a trap. You are asking me to attach my name, my credit score, and my assets to a man who has 6 payday loan inquiries in 30 days. Do you know what the default rate is for someone with that profile? It is nearly 100%. "He is your brother," my father shouted. It was the first time he had spoken. He stood up, his face flushing red. "He is your blood. We are not asking a stranger. We are asking family. You have the money. You have the stability. God forbid you share a little bit of your luck with the people who raised you." "Luck?" I asked. I felt a cold fury rising in my throat. "You think my stability is luck? I work 60 hours a week. I drive a 5-year-old car. I pay my bills on the day they arrive. That is not luck. Dad, that is discipline, and Dylan has none." "I am sitting right here," Dylan yelled. He jumped up, knocking his chair back against the glass wall. "Stop talking about me like I am a disease. I just had a bad run. The economy is trash. You think you are so perfect because you sit in an office and push paper all day? You have no idea what it is like out there." "I know exactly what it is like," I said, remaining seated. "That is why I do not take out loans I cannot pay." "You are just jealous," Dylan spat. The same line my mother had used. It was their rehearsed narrative. "You hate that Mom and Dad actually help me. You want them to cut me off so you can be the only child? You want to see me fail." "I do not want to see you fail," I said. "I am just refusing to fail with you." I turned back to the banker. "Mr. Henderson, based on this credit report, the judgments, the collections, the payday inquiries, would your bank approve this loan without a cosigner?" Henderson looked uncomfortable. He wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. "No," he admitted. "The risk score is well below our threshold. The underwriting software rejected the application automatically. So the only reason we are sitting here," I said, "is because you are overriding the safety protocols." "We look at the whole picture," Henderson said defensively. "The family relationship counts for something." "It counts for nothing in a bankruptcy court," I said. My mother stood up now. She was trembling with rage. "You are embarrassing us. Marissa, sign the papers. Just sign the papers, and we will deal with the payments. We promise. We will not let you pay a dime." "You cannot promise that," I said. "You do not have the money either. If you had the money to cover him, you would not need my signature." "We have assets," my father said. "We have the house." "Which is already mortgaged," I pointed out. "I checked the public records on that too. Dad, you refinanced 3 years ago, probably to bail Dylan out of the last mess." My father went pale. He slumped back into his chair as if I had punched him. I had hit the bullseye. "This is not help," I said, looking at all 3 of them. "This is a transfer of debt. You want to take the anchor that is sinking Dylan, and the anchor that is dragging you down, and you want to chain it to my leg. You want me to be the new host for this parasite." "How dare you," my mother whispered. "Calling your brother a parasite." "I am using financial terminology," I said. "He consumes resources without producing any." "Get out," Dylan hissed. "If you are not going to sign, just get out. We will find someone else." "Who?" I asked. "Who else has a credit score high enough to absorb $58,000 of toxic debt? Uncle Bob? He is still paying off his boat. Aunt Linda? She is on a fixed income. I am it. Dylan, I am the end of the line, and the line is closed." I reached for my folder. I was ready to leave. I had seen enough. I had said enough. But then, Mr. Henderson tried to salvage the situation. He tried to be the peacemaker, the helpful family friend. Now, let us not be hasty," Henderson said, holding up his hands. "Marissa, I understand your hesitation, but your parents have put a lot of thought into this structure. When your father called me last week to ask specifically how we could bypass the standard income verification for the cosigner, we came up with this plan because we thought it protected you. I froze. My hand stopped on the folder. I looked at Henderson. Repeat that, I said. Henderson blinked, realizing he had strayed off script. I just meant… You said my father called you last week, I said, my voice sharp as a razor, and asked how to bypass the standard income verification for the cosigner. Well, yes, Henderson stammered. He was concerned that if we looked too closely at certain ratios, it might trigger a flag, so we structured it as a stated income guarantee. Trusting that you, as an executive, had the resources, we tailored this loan specifically to avoid the deeper audit that might upset you. I turned slowly to look at my father. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the carpet, studying the pattern with intense fascination. They hadn't just asked me for a favor. They hadn't just guilt-tripped me. They had engineered a fraud. They knew that if the bank ran a standard check, they might ask for documents I would want to read. They might ask questions that would reveal the true nature of the refinance. So my father, the man who taught me to tell the truth, had colluded with his golf buddy to create a loan structure designed to bypass my scrutiny. They weren't trying to get a loan approved by the bank. They were trying to get a loan approved past me. You rigged it, I said. The words tasted like ash. You didn't just want my help. You wanted my blind obedience. You worked with the bank to lower the transparency so I wouldn't see what I was signing. It was for your own good, my mother cried out, but the desperation in her voice confirmed it. We did not want you to worry about the details. We just wanted to get it done. You wanted to trick me, I said. I stood up. I picked up my black folder. I looked at the three of them. The brother who felt entitled to my life, the mother who weaponized love, and the father who engineered traps. Mr. Henderson? I said, turning to the banker who now looked like he wanted to vanish into the drywall. I am formally declining to act as guarantor for this loan. Furthermore, if I find that my name has been used on any application documents without my wet signature, I will file a report for identity theft with the Federal Trade Commission. Marissa, wait, my father said, reaching out a hand. Do not touch me, I said. I walked out of the glass office. I walked through the lobby. My heart was pounding, not from fear, but from the sickening clarity of what had just happened. They hadn't just asked for money. They had tried to catch me in a snare. And they were about to learn that you do not set a trap for the one person who knows how to dismantle the mechanism. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot for 45 minutes after walking out of Mr. Henderson's office. I was not crying. I was calculating. My laptop was open on the passenger seat, tethered to my phone's hotspot. I had my personal banking history open in one window, and the notes I had furiously scribbled during the meeting with Henderson in another. I began to overlay the timelines. It was an exercise in forensic accounting, and the results made my stomach turn. Last November, my mother had called me in a panic. She said the furnace had died and they needed $1,200 immediately for the repair, because Dad's pension check had not cleared yet. I had transferred the money within 5 minutes. I looked at the notes from Henderson's screen. On that exact date, November 14th, a payment of $1,200 was made to Tanner and Associates to bring a delinquent account current. There was no furnace repair. In February, my father had asked for $800 for emergency dental work. He said he cracked a tooth on a peach pit. I checked the dates. 2 days after I sent the money, Dylan's suspended driver's license was reinstated, a process that cost roughly $800 in fines and fees. There was no cracked tooth. I scrolled back 3 years. The roof leak, the veterinary bill for the dog, the unexpected tax bill. Every single crisis matched a corresponding financial disaster in Dylan's life. I had not been supporting my aging parents. I had been laundering money for my brother. They were the mules, moving cash from my solvent accounts into his bankrupt ones, using their vulnerability as the cover story. They knew I would never give cash to Dylan, so they intercepted it. They weaponized my concern for their health and safety to subsidize his recklessness. I closed the laptop. The betrayal felt physical, like a blow to the ribs. It was not just about the money, it was about the fact that every time I had felt a surge of protectiveness for them, every time I had worried about them being cold or in pain, they were laughing at me, or if not laughing, they were at least relieved that their trick had worked. I started the car. I was not going home. I was going to their house. When I pulled into their driveway, Dylan's car was there. The house looked the same as it always did. The manicured lawn, the wreath on the door, but now it looked like a facade, a stage set designed to project stability while the foundation rotted. I used my key to let myself in. They were in the living room, sitting in silence. The air was thick with the tension of the argument they must have been having before I arrived. When I walked in, my mother jumped. She looked older than she had at the bank. Her makeup was smeared. "Marissa," she said, her voice wavering between hope and fear. "Did you change your mind? Did you come back to sign?" I ignored her. I walked straight to the side table in the hallway where my father kept the mail. I picked up the stack. "What are you doing?" Dylan asked. He was slumped on the sofa, a beer in his hand. It was 11 in the morning. I flipped through the envelopes: electric bill, gas bill, junk mail, and then 3 envelopes from a company called Radiant Broadband. "We do not have Radiant Broadband in this neighborhood," I said, holding up the envelope. "They only service the city, specifically, the district where Dylan used to live." I looked at the name on the envelope. It was addressed to Robert Caldwell, my father. I ripped it open. It was a final notice for $600. I looked at my father. He was staring at his hands. "You let him use your name," I said. "When he ruined his own credit and could not get utilities turned on, you let him open accounts in your name." My father did not look up. "And it is not just the internet, is it?" I walked into the living room and tossed the envelope onto the coffee table. "The lease on his last apartment, the one he got evicted from, was that in your name too, Dad?" Silence. "Answer me!" I screamed. It was the first time I had raised my voice. "We had to," my father whispered. He looked up, and his eyes were wet. "He had nowhere to go. Marissa, no one would rent to him. He is our son. What were we supposed to do? Let him live on the street?" "So you put your name on the lease," I said. "And when he stopped paying rent, the eviction went on your record. That is why you could not refinance the house last year to pay off his debts. That is why you needed me to co-sign the car. Your credit is dead too." "We were protecting him," my mother said. She stood up, her face flushing with that defensive anger I knew so well. "And we were protecting you. We didn't tell you because we knew you would react like this. You are so cold. Marissa, you judge everything. You do not understand what it is like to love a child so much you would do anything to save them." "You did not save him," I said. "You buried yourselves with him, and then you tried to pull me into the grave." "Don't you dare speak to us like that," my mother spat. "We raised you. We paid for your piano lessons. We drove you to soccer. We sacrificed everything for you. And now, when we need one thing, one signature, you act like we are criminals. You are ungrateful. You have always been ungrateful." She was trying to trigger the old programming. She was trying to make me feel like the small, selfish child who wanted more than her share. But the programming was broken. I looked at her and saw a woman who was drowning and trying to climb on top of me to breathe. "I am not ungrateful," I said. "I am the only one here who is telling the truth, and I want the rest of it, now." I turned to Dylan. He was watching the exchange with a sullen expression, as if this were a boring TV show he was forced to watch. "The bank said you have 6 payday loan inquiries," I said, "and a judgment from Apex Property and the debt to Tanner and Associates. But that does not add up to the desperation I saw in Mr. Henderson's office. Henderson broke the rules for you. Dad risked his reputation for you. You do not do that for a few $1,000s in credit card bills." I took a step closer to him. "What is the real number, Dylan? What is the debt that is actually terrifying them?" I told you, Dylan muttered. It is just a cash flow thing. I have a few projects that are about to pay out. Bullshit, I said. There are no projects. There is no job. And there is a monster in the closet. Tell me what it is. Leave him alone, my mother cried. Tell me, I demanded, or I drive straight back to the bank and file a fraud report regarding the fake furnace repair and the dental work. I will document every cent I sent you under false pretenses as theft. It was a bluff. Mostly, I would never send my parents to jail, but Dylan didn't know that, and for the first time, he looked genuinely scared. It was an investment, Dylan said quietly. What kind of investment? Crypto, he said, and some import logistics. Import logistics, I repeated. You mean drop shipping? It was a sure thing, Dylan said, his voice rising in defense. My friend knew a guy who had a guaranteed supply chain. We just needed capital to buy the initial inventory. It was supposed to triple in 3 months. How much? I asked. Dylan looked at my father. My father closed his eyes. $75,000, Dylan whispered. The room seemed to tilt. $75,000. On top of the car. On top of the credit cards. Where did you get $75,000? I asked. No bank would give you that. I borrowed it, Dylan said. From who? From Mr. Ricci, my father answered. The name landed like a stone. Mr. Ricci was a man who owned several car washes and pawn shops in the next town over. He was not a bank. He was a private lender who operated in the gray areas of the law. He was the kind of man you went to when the bank said no, and you paid him back because you were afraid of what happened if you didn't. You borrowed money from a loan shark? I asked, looking at my father. He is not a shark, my father said weakly. He is a businessman. We play poker sometimes. He trusted us. Us? I caught the pronoun. Did you sign for it, Dad? I vouched for it, my father said. I gave him my word. Verbal guarantee. We signed a promissory note. We put the cabin up as collateral. The cabin, the small lake house that had been in our family for 3 generations, the only asset my parents truly owned outright, the place where I had learned to swim. You bet the cabin on Dylan's dropshipping scheme? I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. It was supposed to triple, my mother insisted, tears streaming down her face now. We were going to pay off the mortgage on this house. We were going to pay you back for everything. It was going to fix everything. But the inventory never came, did it? I guessed. There was a delay, Dylan said. Customs issues. It is stuck in a warehouse. We just need more time. But Mr. Ricci wants his payments. He said if we miss another one, he takes the title to the cabin. Everything clicked. The car loan wasn't for a car. You were going to get the $58,000 from the bank, I said, putting it together. You were going to buy the car, then turn around and sell it. Or maybe you were not even going to buy the car. Maybe Henderson was going to cash out the difference. You were going to use the cash to pay Ricci the back interest to save the cabin. We just need to buy 6 months, my father said. If we can keep Ricci happy for 6 months, Dylan's new job will start paying, and we can refinance. There is no job, I said. Is there? Dylan looked away. There is no job, I repeated. It is all a lie. You are digging a hole to fill a hole. I looked at my parents. They were not evil. They were desperate. They were addicts. Addicted to the idea that their son was special. Addicted to the hope that one big score would erase decades of mediocrity. And they had been willing to feed me into the machine to keep the fantasy alive. If I had signed that loan, I would be on the hook for $58,000. Dylan would have taken the cash, paid Ricci, and 6 months later, when the money ran out and there was still no job, Ricci would have taken the cabin anyway, and the bank would have come for my house. They would have dragged me down, and they still would have drowned. You are going to lose the cabin, I said. No, my mother screamed. Not if you help. You have money, Marissa. You have investments. You could write a check today and clear Ricci. You could save us. I could, I said. I have the money. My mother's face lit up with a terrifying hope. But I won't, I said. The hope vanished, replaced by a hatred so pure it chilled me. You would watch us lose everything? She hissed. You would watch your father lose his inheritance? I am not watching you lose it, I said. You already lost it. You lost it the day you signed that paper with Ricci. I am just refusing to pay for the funeral. I walked to the door. Where are you going? Dylan shouted. You cannot just leave. I am going to set up a meeting, I said. A real one, not with Henderson, not with Ricci. What do you mean? My father asked. If you want me to even consider helping you navigate this mess, not pay for it, but navigate it, we are going to have a formal debt restructuring hearing, I said. Tomorrow night, I am hiring a third-party forensic accountant. We are going to put every single scrap of paper on the table, every loan, every lie, every guarantee. We do not need an accountant, my mother said. We need cash. You need an autopsy, I said. Be at the community center meeting room at 7 o'clock. If you do not show up, I am blocking your numbers, and I am changing my name. And when Ricci comes for the cabin, do not call me. I opened the door. Marissa, my father called out. His voice was broken. Please. 7 o'clock, Dad, I said. Bring the promissory note. I walked out to my car. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped my keys. I picked them up, took a deep breath, and looked back at the house. It looked different now. It didn't look like a home. It looked like a casino where the house had finally lost. I had found the bottom. Now I had to make sure they saw it too. The community center was a squat, beige brick building usually reserved for homeowners association meetings and Boy Scout troops. I had rented meeting room B for $50 an hour. It smelled of floor wax and stale donuts, a scent that was aggressively neutral. I chose it precisely for that reason. It was not a home. It was not a bank. It was a sterile ground zero. I arrived 30 minutes early to set up. With me was Arthur Sterling, a forensic accountant I had retained through my company's legal network. Arthur was a man who looked like he was made of parchment paper and steel wire, thin, dry, and utterly unimpressed by human emotion. He did not care about family. He cared about ledgers. You understand the goal here, Ms. Caldwell? Arthur asked, adjusting the projector I had set up on the folding table. We are not here to solve their problem. We are here to define it. I know, I said. I need them to see the blast radius. At 6:55, they arrived. My mother walked in first, clutching her purse like a shield. She had reapplied her makeup, covering the tear tracks from the morning, but her eyes were swollen. My father followed, carrying a battered leather briefcase that I assumed held the promissory note for the cabin. And then there was Dylan. He slouched into the room, wearing jeans and a hoodie, the golden boy facade completely stripped away. He looked like exactly what he was, a 36-year-old man who had burned every bridge he had ever crossed and was now standing on the edge of the cliff, waiting for a helicopter. They stopped when they saw Arthur. Who is this? My father asked, eyeing Arthur's pinstripe suit with suspicion. You said a meeting. Marissa, you did not say you were bringing a lawyer. This is Mr. Sterling, I said, gesturing to the empty chairs on the other side of the table. He is a forensic accountant. He is here to verify the numbers. Sit down. We do not need an accountant, Dylan muttered, dropping into a plastic chair. We just need the money for Ricci. Why do we have to do this whole song and dance? Because, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. Until this morning, I thought I was being asked to co-sign a car loan. By noon, I found out I was being asked to refinance a loan shark debt. I need to know what else is out there before I make a decision. So you are going to do it? My mother asked. Her voice was thin, hopeful. You are going to pay Ricci? I said I would make a decision, I corrected her. First, the data. I nodded to Arthur. He dimmed the lights and clicked a remote. The projector hummed, throwing a stark white spreadsheet onto the wall. It was the total exposure chart I had compiled, updated with the Ricci loan. Based on the verbal admissions from this morning and the public records search, Arthur began, his voice dry and monotone. The total unsecured and distressed debt obligations for Mr. Dylan Caldwell currently stand at $142,000. The number hung in the room, 142,000. My father gasped softly. That cannot be right. The car was 50. Ricci is 75. Where is the rest coming from? Fees, Arthur said. Penalties. Accrued interest at predatory rates. The Tanner and Associates collection account has been accruing interest at 29%. The Bridgepath loans are effectively operating at an APR of 300% when annualized. 300%? My father repeated, looking at Dylan. Dylan stared at the table. I was going to pay it back, he mumbled. I just needed a big hit. This is not a financial portfolio, Arthur continued, ignoring Dylan. This is a mathematical impossibility. Mr. Caldwell's debt-to-income ratio is currently undefined because he has zero income. He is insolvent. Okay, we get it, Dylan snapped. I am broke. Can we turn the light off? It is humiliating. Humiliation is a necessary step, I said, because for 10 years, you have treated debt like it was imaginary. You thought if you ignored the letters, they would go away. You thought if you lied to Mom and Dad, the problem would shrink. I am showing you the sum of your lies. Dylan. I signaled Arthur to turn on the lights. The sudden brightness made them blink. Here is the situation, I said, placing my hands on the table. You have 3 creditors who can legally destroy you, Ricci, who can take the cabin, the collection agencies, who can garnish any future wages, and the bank, who has already rejected you. We know all this, my mother said, wiping her eyes. That is why we need you. Marissa, you can clear this. You can take out a home equity line on your condo. Pay everyone off, and we will pay you back monthly. We can handle a monthly payment to you. We just cannot handle the sharks. You want me to become the bank, I said. It keeps it in the family, my father said, nodding eagerly. It is cleaner. I have a counter-proposal, I said. I slid 3 thick packets across the table. One for Dylan, one for Mom, one for Dad. What is this? Dylan asked, flipping open the cover. It is a rehabilitation plan, I said. I am willing to intervene, but I will not give you a single cent in cash, and I will not pay off your debts directly. Then how does that help? Dylan demanded. If you sign this agreement, I said, I will hire a bankruptcy attorney to legally restructure your debt. I will fund the legal fees to fight the predatory interest rates from Bridgepath, and I will negotiate a settlement with Mr. Ricci to put a lien on the cabin that freezes the interest, preventing foreclosure for 12 months. My parents looked at each other. They looked relieved. That sounds wonderful, Marissa, my father said. Thank you. I knew you would step up. Keep reading, I said. Page 2. I watched them turn the page. I watched the relief drain from their faces, replaced by confusion, and then anger. What is this? Dylan asked, his voice rising. Mandatory employment? Asset liquidation? Those are the conditions, I said. If I am going to spend my money on lawyers to save you, you have to stop bleeding. Condition 1. You sell the new suit, the watch, and the gaming console. Condition 2. You accept the night shift warehouse job at the distribution center. I checked. They are hiring immediately. It pays $18 an hour. A warehouse? Dylan scoffed. Marissa, I am a sales executive. I cannot work in a warehouse. It would ruin my resume. Your resume is a blank page, I said. Condition 3. You hand over all financial control to Mr. Sterling here. Every paycheck goes into an escrow account. He pays your rent, he pays your food allowance, and the rest goes to creditors. You get no access to credit cards, no cash withdrawals. This is insane, Dylan said, tossing the packet onto the table. I am 36 years old. You are treating me like a child. You are acting like a child, I said. And finally, condition 4. I looked at my parents. Mom, Dad, you sign a document stating that you will not give Dylan any money, no loans, no paying his phone bill, No slipping him cash for gas. If you give him $1, my support stops immediately, and Mr. Sterling will be auditing your accounts to verify." "You want to audit us?" my mother asked, her voice trembling with indignation. "We are your parents. You cannot police how we spend our pension." "I can if you are asking me to save the family cabin," I said. "You have proven you cannot say no to him, so I am making it a legal requirement." I leaned back in my chair. "That is the deal. It is a path out. It saves the cabin. It keeps Dylan out of court. But it requires Dylan to work a hard job and live on a budget for 5 years. And it requires you to stop enabling him." The room was silent for a long time. The hum of the projector fans seemed deafening. I watched them. I really watched them. I was offering them a lifeline. It was a hard lifeline, rough and abrasive, but it would pull them to shore. I wanted to see if they actually wanted to be saved, or if they just wanted to be comfortable. Dylan was the first to speak. "No," he said. He stood up. "No way. I am not working in a warehouse, and I'm not having some accountant give me an allowance like I am 12. This is insulting. You are just doing this to humiliate me. You want to see me crawling." "I want to see you working," I said. "It is too much, Marissa," my father said softly. "He has potential. If we lock him into a warehouse job, he will miss other opportunities, and asking us to open our accounts to a stranger, it is just not right. Families do not do that." "Families do not let loan sharks take their homes," I countered. "Why can't you just sign the loan?" my mother pleaded. "Why does it have to be this punishment? You have the money sitting there. It is so easy for you. Just sign the paper, and we promise we will handle the rest. We will make him get a job. We will make him pay." "You have been promising that for 15 years, I said, "and here we are, $142,000 later." "So you are refusing?" Dylan said. He pointed a finger at me. "You are going to let Richie take the cabin? You are going to let them lose their inheritance? That is on you, Marissa. That is your choice." "No," I said. "That is your choice. I put a solution on the table. You just do not like the taste of the medicine." "It is not medicine," Dylan shouted. "It is control. You just want to control us." "I want to stop the bleeding." I slammed my hand on the table. "I am the only one here trying to stop the bleeding." Dylan sneered. "Come on, Mom, Dad, let's go. She is not going to help. She is just enjoying the show." He started walking toward the door. And then, the moment that broke me finally happened. My parents stood up and followed him. They did not look at me. They did not look at the spreadsheet. They gathered their things, their faces set in that familiar mask of victimhood. They were choosing the lie. They were choosing the comfortable delusion that Dylan was a victim and I was the villain, rather than facing the hard work of reality. "Fine," I said. My voice was very quiet, but it stopped them at the door. "If you walk out that door," I said, "I am enacting phase 2. My mother turned around. "What does that mean?" "It means I am done being the safety net you did not even know you had," I said. I pulled a single sheet of paper from my folder. "For the last 10 years, I said, looking at the list, "I have been paying the family cell phone plan, 4 lines, unlimited data. That is $240 a month. I'm canceling the plan tomorrow morning." "Marissa, you can't," my mother said, her eyes widening. "My number is on that plan. All my doctors have that number." "Transfer it to your own account," I said. "I also pay the Netflix, the Hulu, and the Amazon Prime accounts you all use. Passwords changed. Effective tonight." "You are being petty," Dylan scoffed. "Oh no, no Netflix. I am terrified." "I also pay the insurance premium on the house," I said, looking at my father. "You told me 3 years ago you were short, so I put it on auto pay from my account. That is $2,000 a year. I am canceling the authorization tomorrow." My father went pale. "Marissa, you cannot cancel the house insurance. If the insurance lapses, the mortgage lender will foreclose. It is a violation of the mortgage terms." "Then you better write a check," I said. "And finally, the credit card you carry. Mom, The one you say is for emergencies only? I checked the statement. You used it to buy Dylan groceries last week. You used it to buy gas for his car. You are using my credit to fund the person I'm trying to audit. I took my phone out of my pocket. I opened the banking app. I am reporting the card lost and closing the account, right now. Marissa, stop, my mother screamed. She took a step toward me. You are destroying us. Over what? Over money? We are your family. No, I said, holding up the phone. You are hostages, and Dylan is the one holding the gun. I am just refusing to buy him more bullets. I pressed the button on the screen. Card canceled. It is done, I said. I hate you, Dylan said. He said it with zero emotion, just a flat, cold fact. I hope you die alone in that condo with your money. At least I will own the condo, I said. He stormed out. My father looked at me one last time, a look of utter defeat, and then he followed his son. My mother lingered. She looked at the rehabilitation plan on the table, then at me. For a second, I thought she might stay. I thought she might finally see that I was the one fighting for her. You have a hard heart, Marissa, she whispered. I do not know where you got it, but it wasn't from us. You are right, I said. I had to build it myself, to survive you. She turned and walked out, the heavy metal door clicking shut behind her. I was alone in the room with Arthur and the hum of the projector. The spreadsheet was still on the wall, a glowing testament to a disaster that was no longer my problem. Arthur cleared his throat. He began to pack up his papers. In my professional opinion, Arthur said, clicking his briefcase shut, that went exactly as expected. Yes, I said, staring at the empty chairs. They did not want a solution. They wanted an accomplice. What will you do now? He asked. Now? I said. I stood up and unplugged the projector, plunging the room into darkness. Now I wait for the crash, and I make sure I am not standing in the impact zone. The silence that followed my departure from the community center lasted exactly 11 hours. That was how long it took for the first automated system to trigger an alert, sending a ripple effect through the fragile ecosystem of my family's finances. I had spent the night systematically dismantling the invisible infrastructure I had built around them over the last decade. It was a tedious, heart-wrenching process, clicking cancel on the autopay for my mother's emergency credit card, removing my bank details from the family cell phone plan, and unlinking my email from the notification alerts for the house insurance. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the storm broke. It started with a text from Dylan. It was not an apology. It was a screenshot of a text message he had received from the cellular provider. Service suspended. Please update payment method to restore data. What the hell, Rissa? He wrote. I need my phone for job interviews. You are literally sabotaging me. I did not reply. I simply archived the message. 10 minutes later, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Then she called again, and again. By the 5th call, I knew she had received the email from the home insurance carrier. I listened to the voicemail she left. Her voice was high, tight, and bordering on hysteria. Marissa, there is a man on the phone from the insurance company. He says the policy is flagged for cancellation because the automatic draft was revoked. You cannot do this. If the coverage lapses, the bank will call the mortgage due. Do you want us to be homeless? Call me back right now. I sat at my kitchen counter, drinking black coffee, and felt a strange, cold calmness settle over me. For years, I had believed that if I stopped paying, they would step up. I thought that necessity would force them to become adults. But listening to my mother panic, I realized they were not looking for a way to pay the bill. They were looking for a way to force me back into compliance. I sent a single email to my father. The insurance premium is $2,400 a year. That is $200 a month. If you cannot afford $200 to protect your primary asset, you should not own the home. Write the check. The response was a barrage of notifications. Dylan switched tactics. His messages shifted from anger to pathetic begging. Rissa, please, I have a call with a recruiter at noon. I cannot take it on Wi-Fi. Just turn it back on for today. I will pay you back next week. I swear. Then, 5 minutes later, "You are such a witch. You enjoy this. You like seeing me beg. You are sick." Then back to begging. "I am sorry. I am just stressed. Please, Rissa." I turned my phone face down. By noon, the blast radius expanded. My mother had done exactly what I expected her to do. She deployed the flying monkeys. My Aunt Linda, my mother's older sister, called me. Linda was the matriarch of the extended family, a woman who believed that keeping the peace was the highest moral virtue, regardless of the cost. "Marissa," Linda said, her voice stern, "your mother is in tears. She says you have cut them off completely. She says you are trying to evict them." "I am not evicting anyone, Aunt Linda," I said calmly. "I just stopped paying their bills." "They are your parents," Linda admonished. "They raised you. They sacrificed for you. And now, over a little money, you are going to abandon them? We do not do that in this family. We support each other." "Define support," I said. "What? Does support mean co-signing a loan for $58,000 for a nephew who has 6 payday loan inquiries and a judgment for unpaid rent?" I asked. There was a pause on the line. "What are you talking about? Your mother said it was just a car loan, to help him get to work." "It is $142,000 of unsecured debt. Linda," I said, "including $75,000 owed to a private loan shark that Dad bet the cabin on." The silence on the other end was heavy. That cannot be true," Linda whispered. "Bob and I were just at the cabin last summer. Your father said everything was fine." "I can send you the forensic accounting spreadsheet," I said. "I hired a professional to audit them last night. Would you like to see the numbers? Because if you think I am being cruel, you are welcome to take over the payments. The cell phone bill is $240 a month. Shall I send you the login?" We are on a fixed income, Marissa," Linda stammered. "So am I said. "My income is fixed by the boundaries of what I will tolerate. I am not paying for Dylan's lifestyle anymore." "But the insurance?" "Dad has a pension," I said. "He can pay the insurance. He just chooses to use that money to pay the interest on Dylan's crypto losses. That is his choice, not my obligation." I hung up. My phone pinged again. It was Uncle Bob, Linda's husband. I expected him to yell at me too. Instead, the text read, "Send me the spreadsheet." I sent it. 3 minutes later, Bob texted back, "Holy smoke, the Tanner and Associates account? That is bad news. Marissa, I used to deal with those guys in my construction business. They are vicious." Then a second text, "You are doing the right thing. Do not sign. If Linda calls back, tell her I said to leave you alone." It was the first time in my life that a member of my family had looked at the math and chosen it over the mythology. I felt a knot loosen in my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cold. I was just the only one who had been willing to turn on the lights. But the pressure didn't stop. It just concentrated. My father called me at 2:00. He did not sound angry. He sounded defeated, which was infinitely harder to deal with. "Marissa," he said, "we need to talk. Not about the money, about the situation." "There is nothing to talk about. Dad, sign the rehabilitation plan I gave you, or handle it yourselves." "I cannot sign it," he said, his voice breaking. "I cannot let Mr. Sterling audit my accounts." "Why?" I asked. "If you are only spending money on essentials, what do you have to hide?" "It is not about spending," he said. He took a shaky breath. "It is about the guarantee." "The cabin?" I asked. "We already know about the cabin. Dad?" "No," he said. "Not the cabin. The other one." I closed my eyes. "What other one?" 2 years ago, he said, his voice barely a whisper. "When Dylan wanted to start that distribution business, the one before the drop shipping, he needed a surety bond to get the license. And I went to the Knights of Columbus," he said. "My father had been a member of that local fraternal organization for 40 years. It was his social world, his identity. I spoke to the treasurer, I told him Dylan was solid. I signed a personal affidavit guaranteeing Dylan's solvency so the lodge would back his bond application. My stomach dropped. Dad, you put your reputation with the lodge on the line? If Dylan declares bankruptcy, my father said, or if this debt restructuring becomes public, the lodge will be notified. They will know I lied to them. I will be expelled. Marissa, they will strip my membership. It is all I have left. I sat there, stunned by the sheer depth of the hole they had dug. He wasn't just afraid of losing money. He was afraid of losing his name. He had leveraged his honor, his standing in the community, his entire social existence, just to buy Dylan another 6 months of pretending to be a businessman. So you want me to pay $140,000? I said slowly. So you do not have to admit to your friends that you lied? It is not just friends, he pleaded. It is my life. Marissa, please, just help us get through this patch. Once he gets the job. There is no job, I shouted. I couldn't hold it back anymore. Dad, wake up. He is not going through a patch. He is a black hole. And you threw your membership into the hole right after the cabin. He is trying, my father insisted. He promised me this morning. He swore on your grandmother's grave that he hasn't spent a dime on anything unnecessary in weeks. He is turning a leaf. My computer pinged. It was an alert from the credit monitoring service I had subscribed to, the one I had set up years ago to watch my own identity, which also flagged addresses linked to my family name. New inquiry alert. Affirm financing. Applicant. Dylan Caldwell. Date. Today. Amount. $1,200. Merchant. Elite Gaming Rigs. I looked at the screen. I looked at the timestamp. It was from 30 minutes ago. While his phone was cut off, he must have found Wi-Fi. And while his father was begging me to save his reputation, Dylan was buying a $1,200 gaming chair on a buy now, pay later plan. Dad, I said. My voice was dead. Ask Dylan what he bought 30 minutes ago. What? He just ran a credit check for a gaming computer setup, I said. He is likely using the Wi-Fi at Starbucks since I cut off his data. While you are begging me to save your honor, he is shopping. That is impossible, my father stammered. He is in his room. He is crying. Go check, I said. Go into his room right now. Tell him I saw the Affirm inquiry. I heard the phone fumbling. I heard footsteps. I heard a door open. Dylan? My father's voice was muffled. Marissa says, she says you bought something? I heard Dylan's voice in the background, muffled but escalating quickly. I didn't buy it. I was just looking. I needed it for work. High-speed processing for the data entry job. A gaming rig for data entry? I said to the phone, knowing my father could hear me. Dad, look at him. Look at the lie in his face. There was a scuffle. Then my father came back on the line. He sounded like a ghost. He said he needed it to be competitive. He is an addict, Dad, I said. And you are his dealer. I am done. The answer is no. No cosign, no cash, no bailout. And if you ask me one more time, I will call the treasurer of the Knights of Columbus myself and tell him the truth. You wouldn't, my father breathed. Try me, I said. I am tired of being the only one who pays for the truth. I hung up. I sat there for a long time, watching the sun move across my kitchen floor. I felt physically ill, drained of every ounce of energy. It is a terrible thing to break your own heart to save your own life, but that was exactly what I was doing. My phone remained silent for an hour. Then, at 5 o'clock, a text came from my mother. It was different from the others. No emojis, no exclamation points, no guilt trips. We cannot go on like this. We are drowning. Please, meet us one last time. Just us. No accountants, no lawyers. We need to talk like adults. Tomorrow morning. The diner on Main. I looked at the message. Talk like adults. It was the phrase they always used when they wanted me to regress into a child. They wanted to get me away from the data, away from the spreadsheets, and back into the emotional sludge where they knew how to maneuver. I knew I shouldn't go. I knew nothing had changed. Dylan was still buying toys he couldn't afford. Dad was still protecting a lie. Mom was still enabling them both. But then I thought about the weapon they usually brought to these final standoffs. They were desperate. They had run out of money, run out of credit, and run out of lies. When a narcissist loses control, they don't give up. They escalate. I typed back, 9 o'clock, but if Dylan is there, I leave, and if you ask for money, I leave. Just us, she replied. I put the phone down. I knew they weren't coming to surrender. They were coming to play their final card, and I had a sinking feeling I knew exactly what, or who, they were going to use. I walked over to my printer and picked up the black folder. It was thick with evidence, but it wasn't enough. For tomorrow, I needed something sharper than paper. I needed to be ready to cut the cord completely. I booked a conference room at a co-working space downtown for the final meeting. It was neutral ground, glass walls, polished concrete floors, and a security guard in the lobby. I did not want a diner. Diners are for families. This was a deposition. I arrived with Arthur Sterling, my forensic accountant, and a woman named Joyce, a notary public I had hired for the hour. We sat on one side of the long oak table, a united front of blazers and legal pads. My parents and Dylan arrived 10 minutes late. They looked like a triumvirate of the aggrieved. My mother was wearing a stiff dress and a tighter expression. My father looked gray and hollowed out, clutching a manila envelope. Dylan was wearing the gaming headphones around his neck, a defiant accessory for a man facing financial execution. They stopped when they saw the witnesses. "This is ridiculous," my mother hissed, pulling out a chair. "We said just family. Why are there strangers here?" "These are not strangers," I said, my voice steady. "Mr. Sterling is here to verify the math. Joyce is here to notarize the outcome. Please, sit down." My father placed the manila envelope on the table. He slid it toward me with a trembling hand. "We drafted this last night," he said. His voice was hoarse. "We think it is a fair compromise. It protects everyone." I opened the envelope. Inside was a document typed on my father's old typewriter. It was titled, "Family Unity and Financial Support Agreement." I read the first paragraph. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. It stated that I would co-sign the loan for $58,000, and in exchange, Dylan would promise to pay me back when able. But the kicker was Clause 4. In the event of default, the family agrees to share the burden equally to protect the family name. "Share the burden equally," I read aloud. Meaning, if Dylan does not pay, Mom and Dad pay a third, and I pay a third? "Exactly," my mother said, nodding as if she had solved world hunger. "See? We are in this together. You are not taking all the risk." "Mom," I said, looking her in the eye. "You have $0. Dad has a pension that covers the mortgage and utilities. Barely. If Dylan defaults, which he will, your share of the burden is 0 because you have no liquidity. This clause is a fantasy. It means I pay everything." "You are so cynical," Dylan spat. "I am going to pay it. I just need the car to get to the interview." "What interview?" Arthur Sterling spoke up. His voice was like dry paper. "I took the liberty of calling the HR department of the company you listed on your application this morning. They have no record of an interview scheduled for Dylan Caldwell. In fact, they have a hiring freeze in effect." Dylan went pale. I meant a different company. I applied to a lot of places." "Stop lying," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out my own file. It was 3 inches thick. I dropped it on the table. The thud was heavy. Final. "This is not a negotiation," I said. "This is an intervention. And I am not intervening for Dylan. I am intervening for you, Dad." I opened the file to the page marked with a red tab. "Yesterday, Dad, you told me you signed a surety bond with the Knights of Columbus to back Dylan's previous business license. You put your reputation on the line." My father looked down, his knuckles white. "And Mom," I continued, turning to the next page, "you admitted that the cabin is collateral for the loan shark debt. You signed a promissory note." "We know all this," my mother snapped. That is why we need the loan. No, I said. Here is what you do not know. I slid a diagram across the table. It showed a web of lines connecting Dylan's name to theirs. If I sign this car loan, I said, the bank will run a hard check on all of us. When they see the load of debt Dylan is carrying, the collections, the judgments, they will call the loan immediately if they find out about the undisclosed debts to Ricci and the others. It is called fraud. Dad, you are asking me to commit bank fraud by hiding his insolvency. We are not hiding it, Dylan yelled. We are just managing it. You are insolvent, Arthur said calmly. Technically, you are bankrupt. You just haven't filed the paperwork yet. Here is the reality, I said, standing up. I am not signing, that is off the table, but I'm going to show you what happens next. I pointed to the diagram. Dylan defaults on Ricci next month. Ricci takes the cabin. Dad, you lose the inheritance your father built with his bare hands. My father flinched. Then, I continued, the collection agencies garnish Dylan's non-existent wages. They trace the support coming from your accounts. Dad, they sue you for aiding in the concealment of assets. The Knights of Columbus find out about the judgment. You get expelled for conduct unbecoming a member. You lose your friends. You lose your club. You lose your name. Stop it, my mother screamed. She covered her ears. Stop saying these things. Why are you doing this? Because you need to see the fire before you burn, I said. You think I am the one threatening you? I am the only one telling you the building is burning down. Dylan is the arsonist. She is trying to scare you, Dylan said, but his voice was thin. He looked small in the big leather chair. She wants to watch me fail. I do not care if you fail anymore. Dylan, I said. I really don't. I care that you are dragging them into the crater with you. I sat back down. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. So what is the choice? My father whispered. He looked at the diagram. He looked at the line connecting his name to the ruin. If you won't sign, what do we do? You cut the rope, I said. I slid a second document across the table. This is a bankruptcy plan, I said. Dylan files for Chapter 7 personal bankruptcy. It wipes out the unsecured debt, the credit cards, the Tanner collection, the medical bills. It ruins his credit for 7 years. But guess what? His credit is already ruined. Bankruptcy? My mother gasped. But the shame. What will people say? They will say he is responsible enough to admit he failed, I said. Or they can say his parents lost their home to a loan shark. Pick your shame, Mom. What about Ricci? My father asked. Bankruptcy does not clear the private loan secured by the cabin. No, I said. That is where the golden boy has to actually shine. I turned to Dylan. You sell the car you currently have. You sell the gaming setup you bought yesterday. Yes, I know about the Affirm account. You sell the watch. You liquidate everything. That raises maybe $8,000. You give that to Ricci as a good faith payment to buy 3 months. And then? Dylan asked, his voice trembling. Then you get a job, I said. Not a sales job, not a career, a job. You work days, you work nights, and every single cent goes to Ricci to save the cabin. Mom and Dad do not pay a penny. If they pay 1 penny, I tell the Knights of Columbus everything. My father looked up. You would do that? To save you? I said. Yes, I will blow up your reputation to save your house, because you are too weak to do it yourself. This is blackmail, my mother said. This is boundaries, I corrected her. I can't file bankruptcy, Dylan whined. I will never be able to buy a house. I will never get a good car. You are 36 and you are borrowing money for video games, I said. You are not buying a house. Dylan, you are fighting to stay out of jail. I looked at my father. Dad, look at him. Really look at him. My father turned his head. He looked at his son, the son he had protected, covered for, and lied for. He saw the new suit that didn't fit. He saw the expensive headphones. He saw the petulant curl of his lip. For the first time in my life, I saw the fog lift from my father's eyes. He didn't see a victim. He saw a predator. He saw the hole that was about to swallow his life. He bought a gaming computer? My father asked softly. Yesterday? While I was crying on the phone to you? Yes, I said. My father closed his eyes. A single tear leaked out. It wasn't a tear of sadness. It was a tear of mourning. He was mourning the image of the son he thought he had. I cannot do it anymore, Eleanor, my father whispered to my mother. Bob? She asked, panicked. What are you saying? I cannot lose the lodge, he said. His voice was shaking, but it was firm. I cannot lose the cabin. It was my father's. He looked at Dylan. You have to file. Dad, Dylan shouted. You are siding with her? She is the enemy. She is the only one with a map, my father said. He looked at me, and there was no love in his eyes, only a grim respect. We will do it your way. Good, I said. I signaled Joyce, the notary. She placed a single sheet of paper in front of me. What is that? My mother asked. Is that the check? No, I said. This is a formal affidavit of non-responsibility. It states that I, Marissa Caldwell, have no financial interest in, or obligation to, the debts of Dylan Caldwell. It states that I have been informed of the insolvency and have declined to act as guarantor. It is my legal shield. If any creditor calls me, or if my name appears on any document, I will use this to prosecute. I signed the paper. The scratching of the pen was loud in the quiet room. Joyce stamped it. Thump! The sound of a gavel coming down. I stood up and handed the copy to my father. Keep this, I said. Show it to Ricci. Show it to the bank. Tell them the bank of Marissa is closed, permanently. You are really walking away? My mother asked. She looked small, old, and terrified. You are leaving us with this mess? I am leaving you with the truth, I said. The mess was always there. I just turned on the lights. You are not my daughter, she whispered. A daughter wouldn't do this. You are right, I said. A daughter would have signed and drowned with you. I am the adult in the room, and I have my own life to live. I picked up my bag. I didn't look at Dylan. He was staring at the table, his face red, realizing that for the first time in his life, the safety net was gone, and the ground was very, very hard. I walked to the door. Marissa, my father said. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. Thank you, he said. It was barely audible. It wasn't a thank you for money. It was a thank you for forcing him to stop digging. I walked out of the conference room, past the security guard, and out into the bright, cold sunshine of the city. I took a deep breath. The air tasted sharp. It tasted like freedom. I didn't break the family. I just stopped paying for the lie. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I know families can be complicated, but sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Are you listening from your car, your office, or maybe while doing chores at home? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading your stories. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, hit that like button, and smash the hype button to help this story reach more people who might need to hear it. Stay strong, and see you in the next video.